So first things first, let's look at the market as a whole and try and think about how that market operates. When we're talking about a market here, we're not obviously talking about a place. It's not like Paddy's markets or Flemington markets. A market here means an institutionalized relationship between buyers and sellers who are engaged in exchange, usually money for commodities of some kind, goods or services. So when we're thinking about a market as a whole in a perfectly competitive sense, the way we can represent that is by showing a curve that's downward sloping for a demand curve and upward sloping for a supply curve. A downward sloping demand curve indicates that the law of demand is in operation. The law of demand says that when the price falls, the quantity demanded rises, and vice versa. The law of supply says that when the price rises, the quantity supplied by firms increases. So if we put the demand and supply curves together on a graph, we get a cross. Let's imagine that the price of a good were very, very low. In that case, we can see that the quantity that would be demanded by consumers would be very high, and the quantity that firms or suppliers would be willing to offer would be very, very low. In that case, the quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied. And when that occurs, we would have what we would call a shortage. Now, what happens when there's a shortage in the marketplace? If you've ever been down to the fish markets and seen a situation where you've got a lot of buyers and there's only a few fish available, you'll know what happens to the price of the fish. The price of the fish gets bid upwards, and it keeps getting bid up while ever it's the case that there is a shortage in the marketplace, whenever the quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied. Now that will continue to occur until you reach a price where the quantity demanded precisely equals the quantity supplied. In that case, there will be no incentive on anyone's part to bid the price up further. We would say that the price rises until it comes to rest, or we can say it reaches an equilibrium level, which we can call the equilibrium price. And you'll come to a quantity, an equilibrium quantity, where the amount demanded is precisely equal to the amount supplied. Let's imagine an alternative scenario where the price is very, very high. If the price is very high, then we know, given our demand curve, that the quantity demanded by consumers will be very low. But the quantity that firms would be willing to supply to the market would be very high. In which case, the quantity supplied would be greater than the quantity demanded. And so we would have an excess of supply, an oversupply, or a surplus being produced. In that case, what happens to the price is that it will be discounted or cut as firms attempt to get rid of their excess supply that wasn't purchased. As price falls, the quantity demanded increases and the quantity supplied decreases, and this continues to occur while ever it's the case that there is excess quantity supplied. The price reaches a point at which the quantity supplied precisely equals the quantity demanded. That is, the price will fall and come to rest at an equilibrium point. We'll call this the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity bought and sold. So the lesson that we learn out of this is that wherever the price initially starts out, it will gravitate to the equilibrium point. Graphically, that means the price will gravitate to the point of intersection between the demand and the supply curve. And that will determine, eventually, the market price and the market quantity purchased and sold.